This video must be watched in a dark place and with the use of a headset.
There are some cases that, even after decades, still leave you with the same question, what really happened? But this case is different, because on one summer night, 3 women disappeared from the same house. And when investigators arrived, there was no one there, no obvious sign of a struggle, no bodies, no clear explanation. Even their cars were still outside. This is the story of Cheryl Levitt, a 47-year-old woman, her daughter, Suzanne Streeter, who was 19, and Suzanne's friend, Stacy McCall, who was only 18. 3 women who disappeared without leaving behind a clear trace. To understand what happened to them, we have to go back to the night of June 6, 1992. That night was supposed to be a happy one. Suzanne and Stacy had just graduated from high school. It was graduation night, a night filled with celebrations, friends, and the feeling that a new chapter of their lives was about to begin. Suzanne and Stacy spent the evening with friends, attending graduation celebrations, before eventually deciding to return to Suzanne's home. Suzanne's mother, Cheryl Levitt, was there. Everything seemed normal. Nothing suggested that something terrible was about to happen. Pero, as the night came to an end, the 3 women returned to the house, and no one knew that this would be the last night anyone would ever see them. The next morning, something was wrong. Suzanne and Stacy didn't show up where they were expected to be. Calls went unanswered, and as the hours passed, friends and family began to worry. Eventually, people went to Cheryl's house to find out what had happened, and when they entered, they found something extremely strange. The house didn't look abandoned. It looked as if the women had simply walked away for a moment, but they were nowhere to be found. Their cars were still outside. Personal belongings were still inside the house. Keys, money, clothing, and even the family dog was still there. Think about that for a moment. If 3 people had simply decided to leave on their own, why would they leave so much behind? That became one of the first questions investigators had to answer. But there was an even bigger question. If the 3 women weren't inside the house, when did they leave? And more importantly, how did they leave? Investigators began examining the house. Pero, the scene wasn't what you would expect from a disappearance involving 3 people. There was no obvious sign of a violent struggle. The house wasn't completely destroyed. There wasn't a clear trail leading investigators to another location. But one detail caught their attention. The glass on the front door had been broken. At first, that might not seem like much. Pero, in a case where 3 people had vanished, every strange detail mattered. Was the broken glass accidental? Was it connected to a confrontation? Or was it somehow related to what happened that night? No one could say for certain, and that uncertainty would follow the investigation for years. There was another strange detail. A message had reportedly been left on the answering machine inside the house. Investigators believed it might have been important, something that could potentially help explain what happened. And then, the message was accidentally erased. Think about that. 3 people had disappeared. The investigators were trying to understand what had happened. And there may have been a message waiting on the answering machine, a message that could have contained an important clue. Pero, it was gone. Forever. As the investigation continued, more questions appeared. Police began speaking with friends, relatives, and people who knew the three women. Possible explanations were considered. Possible suspects were discussed. And every small detail was examined. Pero, there was still one enormous problem. Nobody knew where the women had gone. Their belongings were there. Their cars were there. The house was there. But the women themselves were gone. And then, the investigation became even more complicated. Before the scene could be completely secured and treated as a crime scene, several people had already entered the house. That meant investigators couldn't be certain that every piece of evidence was still exactly where it had originally been. Something could have been moved, something could have been touched, and something could potentially have been missed. The question became, had an important piece of evidence already disappeared before investigators even knew they were looking for it? At this point, there is one thing we can say with certainty. On the night of June 6th, Suzanne and Stacy went to Cheryl's home. By the morning of June 7th, all three women were gone. According to the FBI, the approximate window of their disappearance was between 2:15 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., just over 5 hours. 5 hours in which something happened. Something that would eventually turn into one of the most enduring missing person cases in Missouri. Did the three women leave willingly? Did someone come to the house? And if someone did, how could three people disappear without leaving behind a clear trail? These questions were only the beginning, because as investigators dug deeper, new information began to surface, and certain people began to enter the investigation, people whose presence would make the case even more complicated. This is where our story ends for part 1. But the investigation is only beginning. Part 2 will take us deeper into the people, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the disappearance of the Springfield Three.
Like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.